The modern day is often described as a battle for attention. However, looking closer, it is actually a battle for cognitive resources. By 2 p.m., many individuals find themselves unable to make even the simplest choices: what to eat, what to wear, or how to respond to a basic email. This state of exhaustion isn't just laziness. Clinical observations indicate a specific biological and psychological phenomenon known as decision fatigue, paired with the physical tool of chronic cortisol elevation. This is Jaromir's sessions, and today's analysis focuses on why the brain runs out of power, how the body reacts to constant stress, and the invisible cost of living in a state of high alert. This is not just about being tired, it's about how the biology of stress rewires our daily reality. Every choice, from the trivial to the life-changing, consumes a limited amount of mental energy. This is formally referred to as executive function. In simple terms, think of it as the CEO of the brain. It's responsible for planning, focusing attention, and juggling multiple tasks at once. But just like a CEO, it can get a burnout if it has to make too many small decisions in a row. From a neurobiological standpoint, the brain doesn't distinguish between the energy needed to choose a toothpaste and the energy needed to sign a legal contract. It all comes from the same pool. When this pool is depleted, decision fatigue sets in. An example of this in action. Consider a person working at a high-stakes job. They spend 8 hours making complex professional decisions. By the time they get home, they feel paralyzed looking at a dinner menu. This isn't because they don't know what they like. It's because the prefrontal cortex is effectively offline. Research into cognitive load suggests that when the brain is exhausted, it begins to look for shortcuts. This leads to two things: either impulsivity, buying things or eating things that are unhealthy, or total avoidance, doing nothing at all. While the brain is struggling with choices, the body is managing a different resource, cortisol, known as the stress hormone. Cortisol is designed for short-term survival, the fight or flight response. However, modern stress is not short-term. It's chronic. To understand why this happens, we must look at the HPA axis. This is a term used to describe a complex communication network between three specific parts of the body: the hypothalamus in the brain, the pituitary glands, and the adrenal glands, located above the kidneys. Think of the HPA axis as the body's thermostat for stress. When the brain perceives a threat, even a minor one like an unread email, the adrenal glands respond by pumping cortisol into the bloodstream. Extensive psychological data indicates that in a state of mental fatigue, this thermostat becomes broken. Because the brain is constantly making decisions and processing information, the HPA axis stays in a state of high alert. This leads to chronic cortisol elevation. The body is stuck in an alarm state with no off switch, preventing the nervous system from returning to its natural baseline, the state of calm and recovery. Consider the morning spike example. Imagine waking up and immediately checking a phone. Before even leaving the bed, the brain is flooded with news, emails, and social comparisons. The body reacts as if it's under the threat, releasing cortisol to prepare for a struggle. But there is no physical struggle, only sitting at a desk. Because the cortisol isn't burned off through physical action, it remains in the system. Over time, this constant elevation leads to systemic inflammation, sleep disturbances, and a foggy brain that struggles to process information. The body is effectively stuck in an alarm state with no off switch. There is a common misconception that having more choices leads to more freedom. However, from behavioral economic perspective, this is known as the paradox of choice. 20 years ago, a person might have had 3 brands of coffee to choose from. Today, there are hundreds. While this looks like a liberty, clinical patterns show that it actually creates an analytical tax on the brain. Each minor trivial choice contributes to the overall state of mental fatigue, leading to a much darker reality. You see, the term hidden cost is not a metaphor, it's a literal depletion of your life quality. When the prefrontal cortex is exhausted by these endless micro decisions, we begin to pay what can be described as resentment tax in our personal lives. We find ourselves snapping at the people we love, not because of their actions, but because we simply lack the cognitive energy for emotional regulation. Furthermore, we pay a financial leak, falling into impulsive spending because our willpower is effectively offline. But perhaps the highest cost of all is cognitive tunneling. This is a state where you become so focused on just surviving the next hour that you lose the biological ability to plan your next year. In this state, you aren't just tired, you are losing your agency, your very ability to steer your own life. Consider the digital fatigue example, which many experience daily. A simple intent, like watching a movie, now involves navigating hundreds of options on a streaming platform. By the time the choice is finally made, the potential for enjoyment has suffered what we call satisfaction deficit. The mental cost of the selection process is so high that the brain is cognitively depleted before the movie even starts. This leads to decision avoidance, a state where individuals feel paralyzed by their own freedom. The result isn't relaxation, it's a higher baseline of stress and lingering sense of frustration, as the brain remains stuck in evaluation mode instead of rest mode. Identifying mental fatigue before it becomes a full burnout is essential. From a psychological standpoint, there are three primary indicators. Reduced impulse control. The filter disappears. A person might find themselves snapping at loved ones or overspending. The brain no longer has the energy to regulate emotions. Decision paralyzes. Simple tasks feel monumental. Procrastination isn't about time management, it's about lack of choice energy. Physical heaviness. Chronic cortisol elevation often manifests as unexplained fatigue, especially in the shoulders, neck, and digestive system. Physical heaviness. Consider a common workplace scenario. An employee who was once highly efficient but now takes hours to draft a single simple reply. To an outside observer, or even to themselves, they might appear lazy or unmotivated. However, from the neurocognitive perspective, this individual is experiencing severe cognitive overload. They are stuck in a self-reinforcing loop. The fear of making wrong or suboptimal choice creates an internal stress response. This triggers the HPA axis to release more cortisol, which specifically impairs the prefrontal cortex, the very part of the brain needed for clear communication. Essentially, the more they try to force a decision, the more cortisol floods their system, further clouding their judgment. They aren't lacking discipline, they are suffering from a biological shutdown of their executive function. If the problem is systematic, the solution must be structural. Neuroplasticity studies suggest that the brain has a remarkable capacity to recover, but it requires a strict protocol of decision minimization. This is why many high-performing individuals, from CEOs to elite athletes, often wear the same style of clothing every day or eat the same breakfast. This is not a lack of creativity, it's strategic reservation of executive function. They are effectively saving their prefrontal cortex for the complex choices that actually matter, rather than wasting energy on the trivial one. Furthermore, in terms of restoring homeostasis, reducing cortisol requires biological breaks. These are deliberate periods when the nervous system receives zero new input. It's important to clarify, this is not scrolling on a phone, as that still requires rapid-fire processing and micro decisions. True recovery involves total sensory rest. Only this allows the HPA axis to reset its thermostat and the cortisol levels to finally return to a healthy baseline. It's crucial to remember the brain is not a machine with infinite fuel, it's a biological system with hard limits. Mental fatigue is the price we pay for living in an age of infinite information, but understanding the biology of the brain provides a way out. From this perspective, choice is not just a right, it's a limited resource. Treat it as something precious. By protecting your nervous system and narrowing your focus, you aren't just managing stress, you are reclaiming your agency. Healing begins when the focus is shifted from doing more to deciding less. A healthy mind requires a protected nervous system, not a constant stream of high-stakes choices. Before wrapping up, look at your daily routine. Ask the question, where are you wasting your choice energy on things that do not serve your future? Reflect on that, protect your battery, understand the pattern. I'm Jaromir. Thank you for this session. Stay curious. And if you are ready to master the mechanisms of your own mind, subscribe to Jaromir's sessions. See you in the next one.